Story number 1, Guest Registry. I pulled into the gravel lot of the Harborview Inn just after 6 in the morning. The fog was thicker than the photos online had suggested. The kind that swallows sound and makes the small building look like it's floating. I sat in my Subaru for a moment, engine off, watching the place materialize through the mist. It was charming in that specific way coastal Maine bed, and breakfasts are charming. Weathered blue shutters, a wraparound porch, hanging baskets of something that might have been flowers or might have been dead. I'd booked it 3 weeks ago for a photography assignment, a magazine piece on small town New England in spring. I was meticulous about these things. I had the confirmation email. I had screenshots. This was my first time here. The innkeeper was waiting on the porch when I got out of the car. A man in his mid-50s, soft around the middle, wearing a cardigan despite the mild morning. He smiled before I'd even closed my door. "Welcome back," he said. "I'm so glad you made it. The drive through Rockport wasn't too bad, I hope." I paused. The drive through Rockport. That was the road I'd taken, yes, but only because I checked Google Maps last night. I smiled back, assuming the obvious explanation. He'd confused me with someone else. People did that. I looked fairly generic. Brown hair, average build, forgettable face. The kind of face that probably appeared in dozens of guest books over the years. "Actually, this is my first visit," I said, keeping my tone pleasant. "But the drive was fine, thanks." He tilted his head slightly. "Your first visit. Right, of course. Still black coffee with 1 sugar, I assume. That's how I remember you taking it." I hadn't told him how I took my coffee. I hadn't told anyone at this inn how I took my coffee, because I'd never been here before. The rational part of my brain, the part that had kept me safe through 34 years of solo travel, offered an explanation immediately. He'd overheard me on the phone, maybe. Or he was making an assumption based on something I'd said. Or he was just a weird guy who made assumptions about guests and occasionally got lucky. "Actually, I'll take it however you make it," I said. "I'm not picky." He nodded slowly, still smiling. "You never were." The room smelled like lavender. Not the pleasant kind of lavender, the aggressive, chemical kind that comes from a plug, an air freshener cranked to maximum. It was so strong it made my eyes water slightly. I set my camera bag on the bed and opened the window, but the fog was so thick that opening it didn't help. It just let in the damp. Underneath the lavender, there was something else. Something stale and old. Like fabric that had been sealed in plastic for a long time, and then suddenly exposed to air. I told myself it was just the smell of an old house. Old houses smelled like that. I'd grown up in one. Breakfast was at 7. I sat in the common room with a cup of coffee and a plate of blueberry pancakes. The pancakes were good. The coffee was hot and black with 1 sugar, exactly as I'd never specified. "You still don't like butter on them," the innkeeper said, setting the plate down. Not a question. I looked up at him. "I haven't ordered yet." "No, but I remember. You always skip the butter." I set my fork down. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I've never been here before. This is my first stay." He was standing very still. His expression hadn't changed. "You never forget a face," he said. "That's what I always tell people. I never forget a face." I didn't respond. I cut into the pancakes and ate them. He stood there for another moment, then walked back into the kitchen. The common room had that same lavender smell, but it was mixed with coffee and something floral from the wallpaper. There was a bookshelf with paperbacks, a fireplace with decorative logs, and a small side table with a leather photo album on it. The kind of album that bed and breakfasts put out so guests could see pictures of the inn and the town and other guests enjoying their stays. I flipped through it while I ate. Pictures of the porch in summer. Pictures of the beach. Pictures of couples and families and solo travelers smiling at the camera. And then, near the back, a picture of someone sleeping in a bed. A woman in gray pajamas with small blue flowers on them. The exact pajamas I'd packed this morning. The exact pajamas I was wearing under my sweater. The woman was me, asleep, in the bed upstairs. I closed the album very carefully. My hands were steady, which surprised me. I set my fork down next to my plate. I finished my coffee in small sips. I was thinking very clearly. The way you think clearly when your body has decided that panic is a luxury you can't afford right now. The innkeeper was in the kitchen. I could hear him moving around, the clink of dishes. I went upstairs to my room, packed my bag in under 3 minutes, and came back down. He was standing in the hallway when I reached the bottom of the stairs. I hadn't heard him come out. "I need a refund," I said. I was already pulling out my phone. "Full refund. I'm leaving. Is something wrong with the room?" His voice was calm, genuinely concerned. "I'm calling the police," I said. I was already dialing. I showed him the phone screen so he could see I was serious. "I'm going to the station in town. Right now." He didn't move. He didn't try to stop me. He just watched me walk past him and out to my car. His expression was the same gentle, confused expression it had been all morning. The police station was a small brick building next to the town library. I sat across from Officer Reeves, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes, and told her everything. The confusion about my first visit, the details he knew, the photograph. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she stood up and walked over to a filing cabinet. She pulled out a folder and set it on the desk between us. "The Harborview Inn," she said, "closed 3 years ago. Owner was arrested in 2021. I looked at the photograph in the folder. It was the same man, younger in the picture, but unmistakably the same person. He was breaking into guests' homes, Officer Reeves said, after they left, photographing them in their sleep. We found thousands of pictures. He'd been doing it for years. We only caught him because one of his victims recognized her own house in a photograph he'd left behind. I didn't say anything. The inn's been closed since his arrest, she continued. The building's been locked up. No one's been living there. No one's been running it. I looked at her. I looked at the folder. I looked at the photograph of the man who had greeted me on the porch that morning, who had made me breakfast, who had known things about me that I had never told him. "That's not possible," I said. Officer Reeves closed the folder. "No," she said, "it's not." Story number 2, shoulder assistance. I was driving eastbound on Highway 20 through the high desert scrub country, maybe 30 miles outside of Baker City. The afternoon had turned gray and wet. Not a real rain, just that cold drizzle that makes everything look washed out and distant. I'd been on the road since early morning, visiting claim sites for the insurance company, and I was tired in that specific way where your eyes feel dry, but your mind is still sharp enough to notice things. The highway was empty. I hadn't seen another car in maybe 15 minutes. That's when I saw the man on the shoulder ahead, waving. He was wearing one of those orange reflective vests, the kind highway maintenance crews wear. He was pointing at my rear end, at my tires, gesturing urgently. At first I thought maybe I'd hit something, a pothole debris, and didn't feel it. You hear about that. So I eased off the gas and pulled onto the gravel shoulder about 20 feet ahead of him, keeping the engine running. I looked in my mirrors. All 4 tires looked fine to me. The rear left one was the one he'd been pointing at, and it looked normal. But I'm not a mechanic, I'm an insurance adjuster. I know how to read a claim form better than I know how to read a tire. The man walked up to my window as I was lowering it. He was maybe 50, weathered face, the kind of person who works outside. He spoke calmly, not panicked or anything. "You've got a dangerous tire situation back there," he said. "Sidewall damage. We've been watching the road, and I'm glad I caught you before you hit the interstate." I nodded, trying to see past him to look at the tire. That's when I noticed something wrong. The air smelled thick and chemical, diesel fuel, heavy and oily. But I hadn't seen a single truck pass me in the last 20 minutes. The smell was fresh, not lingering from something that had passed earlier. And more than that, I didn't see any county vehicle anywhere. No truck, no equipment trailer, nothing. Just the man in the vest and the empty highway behind him. "Where's your vehicle?" I asked. "Just up the road," he said. "We can get you sorted out at the maintenance yard. It's only a few miles." I was about to say something else, to ask for a business card, to say I'd call the county directly, when I noticed movement in my peripheral vision. Another man in an identical orange vest was walking around the back of my car, and before I could process what was happening, he opened my passenger door. I'd left it unlocked. I always do, out of habit, even though I know better. "Eh?" I said, but the second man was already sliding into the seat, and his hand was reaching toward my ignition, toward the keys still hanging there. The first man had stepped closer to my driver's side door, blocking it from the outside. His expression hadn't changed. He was still calm, still speaking in that reasonable tone. "We'll take you up to the yard," he said. "Get that tire situation handled." My body moved before my mind caught up. I slammed the car into reverse and floored the accelerator. The wheels spun on the gravel for maybe half a second, and then I felt the rear end drop. The ditch was shallow, but it was there, and the back wheels went down hard. The second man was already lunging out of the passenger seat, and I heard him grunt as he hit the ground. The first man stumbled backward, his hands up. I shifted into drive and kept my foot down. The front wheels caught and the car lurched forward, fishtailing across the grass median. My headlights swept across the empty westbound lane, and then I was on the pavement, accelerating, the car shaking from the rough crossing. In my mirror, I could see both men standing in the road, not chasing, just watching. One of them was pointing at something, and the other was running toward the tree line where the highway curved north. I didn't slow down. I drove for maybe 2 miles before I even breathed normally again. 20 minutes later, I was at a gas station outside of North Powder, sitting in my car with my hands shaking, calling the sheriff's office. While I was on the phone with the dispatcher, I thought about the dash cam. I'd had it installed 6 months ago, after a fender bender. I pulled up the footage on my phone. The video was grainy, the kind of thing that captures the road ahead and the sides, but not much detail. I scrolled back to where I'd pulled onto the shoulder. I could see the first man waving, see myself braking. And then, as I was slowing down, I saw something that made my stomach go cold. There was a third person. Crouched directly behind my rear bumper, in the blind spot where I would have walked to check the tire. Crouched and still, waiting. The video quality wasn't good enough to see his face or what he was holding, but his posture was clear. He was positioned exactly where someone would need to be. The dispatcher was still talking to me, asking me to describe the men, asking if I was safe, but I wasn't really listening anymore. I was watching the video loop, watching that third figure crouch and wait in the space between my car and the gravel shoulder, the space where I would have stood if I'd gotten out to look at the tire like a normal person would have. I gave the dispatcher the location and the description. She said a unit was being sent out. I don't know if they found anything. I never heard back. The sheriff's office said they patrolled the area and found no evidence of county workers or any abandoned vehicles. No one matching the description was ever identified. I still drive that highway sometimes for work. I always lock my doors now, even when I'm parked. And I always check my dashcam footage before I pull over for anything, even if it seems routine. But mostly I just feel that weight in my chest when I see someone on the shoulder, that moment of not knowing whether to stop or keep driving. And I think about that third man, crouched in the space I didn't see, waiting for me to step out into the drizzle. Story number 3, cubicle rotation. I was supposed to leave at 5:30. That's what I told myself when I stayed to finish the quarterly reports. Just 30 minutes. The office was already emptying out. People streaming toward the elevators, saying goodnight to whoever was still at their desk. By 6 o'clock, the floor was quiet enough that I could hear the air conditioning humming through the vents. I was deep into a spreadsheet when someone appeared at the edge of my cubicle. A man in his mid-40s, maybe, wearing a dark polo shirt with a company logo I didn't recognize. He had a building badge clipped to his belt. "Hey," he said. "I'm with IT. We're rolling out a security update tonight." I looked up. His face was ordinary, tired looking, the kind of person you see in a building and never think about again. "Sure," I said. "What do you need?" "Just your login credentials. Won't take long. We're updating the authentication protocol on all the workstations." I hesitated for maybe 2 seconds. We'd gotten a phishing email the week before, something about a fake password reset. Everyone had been warned, but this man was standing in my office building with a legitimate badge. He knew about the phishing email, which meant he probably worked here or knew about our security concerns. "Okay," I said. I gave him my username. When he asked for the password, I hesitated again. "I can reset it myself if that's easier," he said. He was already moving toward an empty desk 2 cubicles over. "No, it's fine," I said. I gave him the password. He sat down at the empty desk and started typing. I watched him for a moment, then went back to my spreadsheet. Every few seconds, I'd glance over. He was looking at the monitor, typing, then glancing back at me. Just quick looks, nothing unusual. Probably just checking something. The fluorescent lights above my head buzzed. I'd never noticed how loud they were until that moment. The air conditioning system shut down with a soft mechanical wheeze, and the floor went quiet. Just the sound of his keyboard clicking. Click, click, click. Steady and patient, I decided to get water. The break room was at the end of the hallway. I filled my bottle from the dispenser and stood there for maybe 30 seconds, looking out the window at downtown Atlanta. The sun was almost gone. The buildings across the street had their lights on, but they looked far away. I was walking back to my desk when I heard footsteps behind me. The man from IT was about 10 feet back. "Hey," he said. "Quick question." I stopped. "Which parking deck do you use?" I didn't answer right away. There was something about the question that felt wrong. Not threatening exactly, just specific. "The one on the south side," I said finally. "What time do you usually leave?" "Around 6, I said. Tonight I'm staying a little late. He nodded. I saw your car this morning, silver Honda. You were parked on the 3rd level, right? Near the elevator. I didn't say anything. My car is silver. I do park in that deck. But I'd never seen this man before in my life, and I couldn't remember if my car was parked on the 3rd level this morning. It might have been. I park there most days. I noticed it because I was looking for a spot, he said. He was smiling a little. Not a friendly smile, just the shape of one. I walked back to my desk without responding. He didn't follow, but I could feel him standing in the hallway. Watching me walk away, I sat down and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking a little. I told myself it was nothing. He saw my car. He was making conversation. People do that. It's normal. But I knew it wasn't normal. The way he'd asked, the way he described exactly where it was. The fact that he'd been looking at me every few seconds while he typed. I texted building security. There's an IT contractor on the floor. I'm not sure he's legitimate. Can someone come check? I sent it and looked around. The man was standing near my cubicle now, about 15 feet away, staring at the conference room. The one with the glass walls. I stood up and walked toward it, trying to move naturally. I went inside and locked the door. Through the glass, I could see him. He was just standing there, not moving, looking at me. I called security. The woman who answered said someone would be up in a few minutes. He was still standing there, motionless. His eyes on the conference room, on me. I don't know how long I waited. 5 minutes, maybe 10. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The office was completely silent now except for that sound and my own breathing. I kept the phone in my hand. I didn't unlock the door. When security arrived, he was gone. 2 guards came onto the floor, looked around, checked the bathrooms. Nothing. He'd just left. They asked me to describe him, and I did. They said they'd check the security footage and the badge logs. One of them walked me to the elevator. As we were leaving, the other guard called out from the stairwell. Hey, you might want to see this. He was holding something. A piece of paper. Folded. He opened it carefully. It was my personnel file. My name, my address, my emergency contact information. All of it printed out. He'd found it in the stairwell trash can on the 2nd floor, folded and tucked under some other garbage. I don't remember much after that. Security took statements. I gave them the description again. They said they'd review the footage and call me. I drove home with the doors locked and the windows up, even though it was warm. The next morning, security called. They checked the badge logs. The man had swiped in at 4:45 using a contractor badge that had expired 6 months ago. The footage showed him entering through the loading dock. They couldn't get a clear image of his face. He'd kept his head down. They were filing a report with the police. I'm back at work now. It's been 3 days. Security is still reviewing footage. The police said they'd follow up, but they sounded like they didn't think there was much to follow. He didn't steal anything. He didn't hurt anyone. He just printed a file and left. But he knew my car. He knew where I park. He knew where I live. And I keep thinking about him standing there in the conference room doorway, looking at me through the glass, not moving, just waiting, like he was deciding something. I don't know what he wanted. I don't know if he's still out there. I just know that when I leave work now, I sit in my car for a few minutes before I start the engine. I look around the parking deck. I check my mirrors. And sometimes when I'm driving home, I think I see a car behind me. But when I turn,